We'll start with Maria Luisa.
I'm Maria Luisa. I'm the director of the Office of Human Relations and Human Rights Commission. Good to be supporting this work.
Arlen Bird, I'm a commissioner in the Human Rights Commission and have done police accountability activism on and off, particularly with survivors of violence. So I'm happy to be here and continuing to do the work.
Hector Lopez, commissioner, retired minister from the United Church of Christ and spouse to Reverend Lynn Smouse of Ainsworth United Church of Christ. And I got involved with police work in 1964. And it hasn't stopped since. I won't tell you how I got involved, but
I'm sure we'll come on later.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Abdul Majid, and I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission, and also work with Portland Community College. That's my full-time job. And I have been involved in partnership with the community and police since 1995, specifically in Washington State, between law enforcement, city and sheriff's departments, as well as university law enforcement.
And good afternoon, I'm Donita Fry. I'm a commissioner on the Human Rights Commission. I am also employed at Native American Youth and Family Center and actively involved in the Native community, and I'm passionate and interested in how we can strengthen relationships with the police bureau. That's my
Dora Perrin, with the Office of Commissioner Fritz, and liaison to Office of Neighborhood Involvement, and also to the liaison to the Human Relations Office. In my past life, for years, I've worked with programs that cross paths with, with police issues, including coordinating a program for the Justice Department, and worked a lot with community policing. I'm a past member. I haven't been attending for African American Police Advisory, and that was on and off of that for years. So been involved a lot in community-related issues with police. So but this setting is just to represent Commissioner Fritz and to hear what is going on. It's exciting that this group is forming.
I'm Shannon Callahan from Commissioner Saltzman's office. I'm going to work on public safety issues for Dan. Before he received the police bureau, just I guess last month, I've been doing social policy issues for him, and in particular we've been working on starting the domestic violence one-stop center, which I'll be continuing to work with him on, and hope to open actually as a city and county entity later this year.
Hi, I'm Mike, and I'm filming as Joe Anybody, and I'm doing this for just community media and just to help share what you guys are all trying to do in our city. And corporate media is not here, so I'm trying to fill in the gap.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Kofi Desu. I'm assistant to Maria Luisa in the Office of Human Relations. My past experience with the police started since 1996, when I was in charge of the Democracy and Human Rights Program for the U.S. Embassy in my country. So from that date, I've been working with the police, organizing workshops to develop co-relations between the security forces and the civilians. And I organized those workshops for the U.S. Center for Civil and Military Relations, and also for the Department of Justice on trafficking issues.
car traffic or door traffic?
Human trafficking.
Oh, human traffic.
human trafficking.
We have a couple of minutes in this part of the agenda to follow up on some of the things that we heard. Fascinating stuff that people have been involved. Anybody like to share a little bit more of your activity? Just jump in. Well, I wasn't. I didn't realize you were so shy. I was in Berkeley, California when I started my relationship with the police community. First, it was being part of a group of clergy in defense of the abuse of radicals like the Black Panthers. One of my colleagues was a minister of religion for the Black Panthers, and so he was able to get us all involved in a protective mode. And it began from there. I was involved in Oakland, helping to create a safer gun policy by shooting officers. They used to shoot in the backs of people. Through our work and the work of the police chief, that was eliminated. So those were some of the things. And the most current was my failure as the chairperson of the CRC group of the Independent Police Review. Anything else?
I've been working mostly within the Black community here in Portland, with people who identify as surviving police violence. I've worked with an organization of self-identified progressive survivors of violence, and then so we work with people that are surviving violence that are system defined. Like, I was paralyzed by a man who was convicted of drinking and driving, so like a traditional crime victim, but then also I've worked with people whose loved ones were killed by law enforcement, because really the experiences of people surviving that form of violence are the same regardless of who killed their loved one. So, yeah, and not, most recently I was working with a woman who was trying to start an organization to provide grief counseling for folks in the African American community here in Portland. And she actually had to flee the state because of threats to violence to her life and the lives of her grandchildren. So, yeah. And the police weren't able to provide safety for her. So I think for me, part of the discussion about the role of police is really like, what is that sense of safety? And how can, I think that they serve a role, but how do we really help make it so that they can create safety when people are asking for them, and when people aren't asking for their presence as well, create that sense of safety.
Well, I can share, and I'm not sure really where to begin, but what was just going through my mind is that the demographics of the Native community are, first of all, our youth are probably one of the highest percentages of people that are in the juvenile justice system. Our parents are away from our families because of incarceration. We experience racial profiling. We have the fear of government in general as a people, but and we may not know how to form healthy relationships, but I want to share in the movement of bringing our people above that and educating ourselves and making us be aware of those stronger relationships and how to change that. What is a component? How can we begin to change that whole series of related outcomes from dealing, I think, can be directly related to feeling right with our Portland Police Bureau as a starting point. And so as a community servant to our community, I want to be involved and help share information and bring concern where I can. So that's part of my passion about being here too.
One more, and then we will have more time, if not necessarily today, through our meet gatherings to keep digging into some of these stories, because they're fabulous. So there's one more person I'd like to share. Yeah, please.
Yeah. First of all, my first experience with the police My younger brother died because of police. It's very difficult to talk about that, but as an immigrant, the perception we have back before we come here is very critical, based on some incidents that we saw on the media, through our friends or brothers who come back from America. We have a certain fear, a strong fear for the police in America. So that's the education we give to our children. You have to fear the police officer in America, because as a black man, if you are in trouble with a police officer in America, yeah, he may kill you. So our children grow up with that fear. But how can we change that? Because fearing a police, it's not good to fear a police officer. In fact, the police officer is there to protect you. If you are not a criminal, why fearing a police officer? So it's important to change that mentality in ourselves before we can educate our children to stop fearing police officers.
Well, I'm sure what we've heard will give us a lot of context and content here for our session. If we have some more time throughout the agenda, we'll share some more things. But Maria Lisa, committee history and background.
Just briefly, this committee, the Police Community Relations Committee, is a staff committee of the Human Rights Commission. And it was established in January, during a January meeting, to transition the work of a 2-year process, almost 2-year process, that was part of the Racial Profiling Committee. So there's a lot of information here, a lot of processing of data. Our office will compile a report on the Racial Profiling Committee. There is a report on the first year, and there will be a report on the second year, so that you can understand the context of the discussions and take advantage of the work that has already been done, the research that has already been done, the data that has been compiled, and also so that we can look at this process and do something a little different, something better, something that is more successful. My sense, I was part of this committee from the very beginning. I was an organizational member. I represented Latino Network, which is an advocacy organization for the Latino community, on this committee. And then when I became the director of this new office, I proposed to transition this work in a different way. Because although the committee and the members brought greater visibility to the issue once again, this isn't the first time the city looks at racial profiling or overrepresentation, we weren't able to get at some of the very core issues of the work. So we brought greater visibility, but we're unable to move the work forward because of, and we'll discuss some of the challenges that were present during the committee process. So we are now inheriting this work. It will be challenging work, no doubt, and folks like Hector and Arwen and all of you have been working at this for decades. It's not easy work. My hope in this is that we move it maybe a mile forward, and that we leave it with more success than what you feel in describing your role in the CRC, that we don't leave it as a failed attempt, but rather an opportunity to build strong relations. I think the time is right. You should know that police officers were invited to this meeting, and there will be a police presence here, and that's part of the discussion as well. I'm not sure why Rosie or Chief Martinick weren't able to make it. I didn't hear back from them. But in essence, as we explore and find out more about how to create this new committee, I'll share more with you about what we discussed then, and you'll be able to see the report once it's compiled as well.
There was not only this official profiling committee, there was always also a non-governmental racial profiling committee on which some of my friends, including my wife, served at. So there's information that comes from that venue also, and that'll be put small note. You're wondering why I'm dabbling this evening. It's because I made the mistake of offering my services to serve on this committee. I'm glad the minutes honored my statement, because I said I'm willing to serve in any capacity. And the next thing I knew, I woke up with a gavel in my hand. Now, that's not necessarily permanent. If anybody here feels that they'd be comfortable chairing this committee, as I understand, the committee can select their own chair. Is that correct?
Right. The only difference would be that you're now, I guess, chair of a couple of committees, right? Well, the chairs of the standing committees are part of the executive committee.
This is a standing committee.
And this is a standing committee. So if you appoint a different chair, then that chair will become a member of the executive committee. So it's just a nuance in terms of representation on different bodies of the commission.
Oh, that's fine.
Yes.
So, there are 4 commissioners here. What is your desire in terms of chairing this committee?
What are the responsibilities of chairing?
Chairing, executive committee,
Yeah.
working with
I
Maria
would be
Lisa.
working to set an agenda, and I feel most comfortable if the agenda topics come from the committee itself. So that, and that is one of the challenges that occurred during the regional program committees, that we don't know what's on the agenda. If we propose together and when the larger group is formed, then we know how to plan and we know where our ideas are being honored in terms of the process. So that may be simple. It may be just fine-tuning the agenda.
Yeah, I don't mind doing this. You know,
So-
it's not a big thing, but
Yeah. Taking it more clarification is that because Hector also used to be really, really valuable in the other committee, as we talked about yesterday.
Vulnerable?
Valuable.
Oh, valuable. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So with your experience, training, wisdom, very, very helpful for that. So is it I see where we need multiple brains in the executive committee, but if Hector like chairing both of them,
One is ad hoc.
Oh, one is ad hoc.
So
Okay.
that chair isn't part of the executive committee,
Okay.
according to the bylaws.
Okay, that's good to know.
Just to clarify, so you know where your decisions are impacting.
well, we don't have to deal with it right now, but that's just a thought, okay? So we'll proceed. Mission and purpose.
Okay, so actually, can we go back to that prior item, because I was supposed to share with you a little bit about some of the challenges in the prior committee, and I realize I only allotted 5 minutes to that, but it will help, I think, with discussing purpose. I spoke with the consultant that facilitated most of the meetings of the process, and she shared with me some ideas that I wanted to share with you. So one I already shared, actually, she didn't actually bring up, which was that the agenda was always set by Chief Sizer, the chair of the director of Oregon Action, Joanne Bowman, and a staff person from the mayor's office. Those 3 individuals would get together about a couple weeks before the meeting, and then we met monthly for 3 hours. When this committee was formed, there was no clear direction either from council or from the mayor about what goals would be achieved. There was an overarching goal, end racial profiling. That was pretty much the direction we got from council. So when we came to the table, there was a lot of confusion and lack of clarity about how to do this work. It's challenging work, and the overarching goal seemed unreachable. But that was the goal, and Joanne, as chair, was very clear. We will meet until we end racial profiling. That was the direction. So there was no end in sight. Again, we started a process, a committee, with no clear direction and no end in sight. The consultant believed that the committee got too large. It was large from the beginning, and the membership was very, very heavily weighted on community side, and then changed gradually. So the overall, the membership included several organizations of color. It included Oregon Action, Latino Network, Islamic Society of Greater Portland, NEA, Education, it's around here, Boas Worker Education Center, Albino Ministerial Alliance, the Asian Family Center. So you can see there were a number of community organizations, and there were, at the beginning, I believe, 2 police officers and the representative of the Portland Police Association. So in total,
What you
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 22 members. That's a very large committee. So that was her sense. It was a very large committee, and it was very heavily weighted on the community side. Also, the membership was by organizational representation. So organizations that had traditionally worked on police issues had their director or principal person there, but it didn't necessarily mean that we all had skill in moving this issue forward. It meant that we cared about the issue, we had advocated to end racial profiling, but many of us didn't know how to do this work. Immediately, I mean, early on, tension emerged in the committee that wasn't really ever worked through. There were tensions around the issue of racism, around the definition of racial profiling, around whether or not racial profiling existed, and the debate went back and forth for a number of months. The consultant believes that the committee was started for the wrong reason, and I realize this is a sensitive topic. The committee itself came out of a number of listening sessions that Oregon Action had organized with the community campaign and with a couple of organizations in the community, the Northwest Constitutional Rights Center, whose board I served, and the Center for Intercultural Organizing. Organized big listening sessions where community members came, on average about 15, some larger, to discuss the impact of policing on them. And police officers were often listening in the room. So those listening sessions then led to, well, what do we do now? There were recommendations, and there was a push from Oregon Action's director to do something. My sense of what the recommendations or the evaluation from the consultant, what she's pointing to is that Mayor Potter established the committee before giving full thought to what the direction would be for the committee, because Oregon Action was pushing hard on something. So the answer was, well, establish a task force, establish a committee. The city often does this, establishes task forces or committees without a whole lot of direction for volunteers and without a whole lot of direction for staff. So that was her sense as well. The other piece that was not clear was that the boundaries of what we could and couldn't do weren't clear, and the authority of the committee wasn't clear. So, for instance, Chief Sizer would look at the committee as a sounding board, but the committee itself felt like it had, or the community members on the committee felt like it should have more say in policy and practice changes within the Bureau. There was a huge disconnect on that. What else? So what she is suggesting in light of the 2 years that we spent together is that we begin with some tangible goals, with some achievable goals that will help us move forward, that we begin where there is a movement in a forward direction. We started focused on a very entrenched issue, and we never were able to get out of that. We got some good information, some good data, many presentations over the months, and it was basically an information receiving committee. We weren't able to take much action. So that is what I wanted to share with you in terms of purpose and scope of the past effort. But not to say that people didn't come with a lot of good intention and devoted countless hours on this issue, and many organizations. Toward the end, we had many dropping off as well.
I think one I really appreciate is giving us this background, and it is great that you were in the committee, so we have in this table. So sometimes
And hopefully you include others.
I mean, not first one, past one. But the results are expected. We have a lot of people with a good hearts from the community that they care, coming to the table, officers at the table, And I think it sounded to me, and I can be wrong, is more into coming to the table and just expressing feelings and pushing for things. And that as a result of direction from which you're right from the beginning, it needs to be, okay, what is your charge? Each one on the table, what the expectations, what the goal, what we're trying to accomplish. And those highlighted and keeping it there. Because sometimes it's not appropriate for me to even start discussing a policy of the office of bureau, police bureau, because that's not my space or place to do it. So from this review, it's from the beginning, I think, as you mentioned, there is a hard work, there is done and great people in the table, but it is more of like, let's come to the table and say what we think and feel more than it is somewhere. And some quantitative things that we can measure later on. So.
I just have a couple of clarifying questions. Are you done?
Oh, yes.
Were there 22 organizations that, well, prior to that, from what I understand, Oregon Action did a tremendous amount of work. And then this task force was formed with 22 members, most of them representing community organizations. And I'm going to take a leap and assume that most of them have worked very hard to see racial profiling come to the limelight. Because I remember in the days that you couldn't even bring that it was not an issue that anybody would validate. Just to make sure that there's no appearance of putting this thing away from people who might at this point feel that they still have a stake, in this and want to see it go right or wrong a certain way. Was there a way of transitioning that out of the task force? And if so, what mechanism was used to shift that from where it was going to place here, and how will any conflict be addressed if anybody said, well, we're putting all this work and then all we know now is that we are not at the table, or it's now placed with a city and community do not have the weight that they used to.
So, may I address that question?
Of course.
This is a question that emerged during the Human Rights Commission as well, and I just want to be clear with folks that the transition took some months. That there's also a community campaign that should have been more at the table, that was not really invited to give testimony or participate in any significant way. Because, and I have to say, the chairdom was, you know who the chairs were, they set the agendas, but the community campaign wasn't part of the process in any significant way. This transition, I began to discuss the transition in the summer with individual members of the Racial Profiling Committee, many of them several times, to see whether we could shift the dynamic that was occurring in the committee and see some leadership emerge from the community side that could get beyond the debate. Because we had debated back and forth, but we were not in dialogue, we were in debate. I asked for that leadership to emerge numerous times. We were getting disillusioned about the stuckness of the committee. And I realize it's probably an offensive word to use, and it is organizationally what was happening. I met with the folks around the table to propose what might be a transition to the Office of Human Relations, which was already an ordinance and resolution. So we all knew from the beginning that when the Human Rights Commission and the Office of Human Relations was established, the Racial Profiling Committee would come under that umbrella. That was, from the beginning, an assumption, and it was communicated in the resolution. How was the question. And what I knew in the summer was that there would not be funding for the Racial Profiling Committee. So we had to do this work in a way that we could achieve some gains, and we had no funding. And the ordinance indicated that the committee would fall within the Office of Human Relations. It didn't really mention the Human Rights Commission. To me, the issue of racial profiling, arbitrary arrest, arbitrary stop, is a human rights issue. The issue of inequitable treatment, of disparate treatment, of overrepresentation is a human rights issue. So I began to conceptualize a standing committee rather than within the Human Rights Commission, rather than a committee in our office, which is how the ordinance had written about it, or had been articulated. Better to see it under the Human Rights Commission with the volunteer power and greater community stakeholders coming together, or a broader community stakeholders coming together, and oversight of the Human Rights Commission and direct reporting to the council. The name, Racial Profiling Committee, was again also a debate ongoing within the committee about why we were focused on the issue as the name of the committee rather than the issue as the problem that we were gonna solve, and then create a committee that we could all live with the name. The name itself was contentious. So again, I shopped the name around. One of the conversations that really led to some of this framework shifting was a conversation that I had with Reverend Leroy Haynes, who really wanted to see a broader set of issues addressed, not just the symptom of racial profiling, but could we have a space where we could talk about community policing and the absence of community policing in Portland? Could we have a space that we could talk about use of force and the use of tasers now replacing guns? Could we have, there were other issues that needed to be addressed, and with this limited focus, we couldn't even begin to talk about the other issues. So I began to shop that idea around. In the end, I think, and I will say, and I will put this on the table, I know there are organizations that were invested. I know that there were leaders that invested time, and also it was their agenda to be part of this effort, and they are experiencing a loss. There will be ways that we can engage them, and we should. And what we found also in doing this analysis is that there were some activists on the very extreme side and some police officers on the very extreme side that we could not get these two sides to move. And so the transition was proposed for many reasons. One, I felt personally that we didn't have the right skill set at the table to really address the issues. We needed to bring more expertise. We need to allow the Police Bureau to work through its change process as well, not on its own, not in isolation of some observation, but that they needed the space to carry forward their own change, because it is their responsibility. And that we would create a mechanism to look in, to provide some oversight, to provide some accountability, and that we need to work on the community police relations piece. That was the strength that we brought to the table. Does that help you? I mean, it's a much more candid explanation.
No, it is good.
And
it was
it is
just a
complex.
concern when I heard so many lists.
And
then
people were engaged,
yeah,
they were consulted. But at a certain time, I mean, we just needed to agree that we were not in agreement about, with one particular organization, we were not in agreement about how the transition would occur.
Thank you.
Lisa, that's very interesting. Many of us also heard from others that weren't part of the official government group, and their concern was, number one, that this issue reside in a place that would bear the trust of the community and the wider community. Other comments saying that it's always important to have representational processes in which those groups that have been laboring for years sit at the table. But to assume that those organizations reflect the totality of the wider community is not appropriate. So Maria Lisa and I have been talking, how can we access the folk that aren't in the neighborhood group or in this community or that organization, provide a voice, and I'm not talking about a massive community organizing effort. I'm talking about providing venues and opportunities for all people to come and share their voices and concerns. So, yeah, that's you have to balance that in a very special, careful way. No one should be antagonized by what we do. It should be a table for everybody to be around. Is the sergeant of arms here? I'd like that person to remove this person from. Oh, I didn't see you who you were. Welcome. Would you share your name with us, please?
Marta Wembes.
Martha Wembes, quickly around the table so that she also has access to our names.
Shannon Callahan, Commissioner Software.
Dora Perry, Commissioner Fritz's office.
Donita Fry, Commissioner.
John Majidi, Human Rights Commissioner.
Hector Lopez, Commissioner.
Arvin Bird, Commissioner.
Staff.
Does she have an agenda?
Yes.
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 Do you want to
I actually was told about this meeting, so I just came as a community member.
Ah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you.
We're on the third number of the agenda item, mission and purpose. So as I was saying, that is their concern, that they should not be forgotten. And many people have indicated a broader approach to this also. They don't want racial profiling to go away. They want us to really confront it. But there's other issues that are critical to police-community relationships. So, all right. Any other comments? Maria, Lisa, we continue with mission and purpose.
Okay, so that is the work of this committee to establish. And this is just a draft. You have a document in front of you for a recruitment form where there is some language that may be helpful to you. The duties actually may serve as your purpose. Maintain a pulse on community police relations in Portland and make specific recommendations for their improvement. The second principal duty I see, and this may be something that you can change, or you might see something different, is work with the Portland Police Bureau to study statutes, ordinances, institutional policies, procedures, and practices, and making any changes necessary to improve community policing, which should really be a balanced community and police approach to public safety, and affect reconciliation between diverse segments of the community and police. Now, I neglected to mention that one of the things that the Racial Profiling Committee actually didn't happen within the Racial Profiling Committee, but by organizations that were participating in the Racial Profiling Committee. A couple of organizations decided to take a different approach to community police relations than the committee was taking, and explore some opportunities to bring community and police together in a different way. This committee can continue that work. Our office has been asked to sponsor some dialogues between the Hmong community and the police to help inform media about how the process within the Latino community occurred. So it may be that becomes a very specific thing that can happen early on. You may be more specific about how to affect reconciliation, or you could leave it broad. So that is some draft language around the principal duties. The committee purpose and mission, again, we need to be very specific about this so that it's achievable, people feel successful in their work, and we're actually making an impact on community police relations and on the issues that are important to communities and police that affect communities in a disparate way, such as racial profiling, such as use of force, such as stop search practices, the hit rate, that sort of thing. This committee should be aware that there are 2 other work groups within the Police Bureau that are looking specifically at the search rate, the hit rate, and the disparate data that is emerging there, where more Latinos and African Americans are searched in Portland and less often found to have contraband, and fewer whites or Caucasians are searched and are more frequently found to have contraband. So that committee is going to work on policies, practices, and training around why they're seeing that disparate impact. There's another committee, another work group within the Police Bureau that will be working on professionalism standards and how police interact with community, because there have been a number of complaints on officer rudeness and defensiveness in police stops or even in interaction with police. So that committee will be looking at that, again, at training, at standards, at policy. I hope, and it was part of the recommendation, that we have liaison to these 2 work groups so that we are aware of what they're proposing and we don't duplicate the work. Because not only this group is working on police community issues, IPR is also working on community police issues and have had some direct impact on the use of force policies and on officer rudeness. So we have to be linked to these efforts in some level, otherwise we end up spinning our wheels and duplicating a lot. I leave it up to you to, bounce back ideas around a purpose that could be, and maybe what you do is you set forth a purpose for this year, and then you expand or you evaluate. There is so much work that could take place, and yet we need to think about ways achievable and manageable for a group of volunteers who have police around the table as liaisons as well.
Well, there it is, commissioners, it's before us. We could approach it in a number of ways. I like my preferences for mission statements to be 5-year oriented, and then the goaling comes in at short-term capabilities with achievable things like that. So we can do it any number of ways. Let's start just very briefly. Police-community relations, or the community-police relations. Who's first?
I think it's community.
Oh,
first.
community, okay, very good. I'll get used to doing that. That's very broad. But if we could just imagine, what is it that we would like to see 5 years from now in the relationship of community and police? What do we envision? What would we like to have happen at the end of 5 years in this city?
Maybe a shared understanding of what the role of the police is.
Someone is writing
Would
this
you
down?
like me to chart?
That would be really good, yeah. Since I'm retired, I haven't had access to staff, so I don't know what it's like.
Maybe I would add agreements with a shared understanding and agreement.
Hold that thought. Although it's being recorded,
Yeah,
being
that's,
written.
And this can just be a UV relapse, okay? Shower of ideas.
Grab me a handkerchief.
Yeah.
What, that wasn't set up beforehand? My goodness. Let's see how fast you can do it, Last time I tried, it took me 7 days.
And then the little feet stretch out.
this,
Yeah. No, I'll show you. If you hold it this way.
You want me to start just writing?
Yeah, why don't you keep working, let's keep thinking.
okay.
Arwen just shared a very basic, and keep those words, because we're gonna have to put them up. Some others. What would you like, if we could, what would we like it to be 5 years from now among us as police and community?
we've talked about in the past too is customer service oriented rather than crisis intervention. You know, that outreach mechanism being heavier than reaction to the situation. I think there's a need for that.
Very good.
Could I interject something? A suggestion? Just respect for each other. The people respecting the police and the police respecting the community. That would be nice to see in 5 years.
Very good. Can we have a sheet of paper? We'll start writing on the table while, we don't want to lose these ideas.
I'm jotting the last one down.
Oh, okay, thank you, thank you. All right,
We're almost there.
that's all right, take your time, we have till 2 minutes from now. All right, we have 3 very...
No high
good-
expectations.
Okay.
Any other thoughts? I would like the partnership of police and community to be actualized in very concrete ways, rather than reaction and response. Really developing. Most of you have sat in on some of the, what do they call those teams at police and Muslim and clergy and police and Latinos and police.
Advisory committee.
Yeah, all those advisory committees. It's really hard to see them work as partners. There is a we and you type of dynamic that takes over, and it's very hard to overcome. So in my dream, to actually work in a context in which they work as partners and determining what the roles are, what we want from our police enforcement folk. Abdul?
Oh, go ahead.
No, please.
No, mine is more of a question because I asked one question that has answers. One of the things that I'm very curious about before we start coming up with new ideas is what came out of the listening session? Because I'm always the neutral about dialogue today, and I don't like dialogue for dialogue's sake. But if there are certain things that came out, whether it was youth afraid of police, or the Latino or the African American community disrespect police or police disrespect, how can we put that into the concrete action?
Okay, I'm going to approach that by suggesting that right now we're looking at a mission statement, a purpose which is general.
Okay.
And what you're asking is about specific activity, which will have to be here.
Right.
We will not lose that.
Okay.
We will not lose
So
that.
you're looking for a broader type
Yes.
thing? Okay.
A context for a humane community and police relationship. But say that because that's critical to
That's why I asked it in the form of a question.
No, thank you, thank you.
And if I understand, maybe you mentioned that, but I would like to emphasize what Maria Lee says. I like to see the law enforcement as a community service or customer service mentality more than accusation or prejudgment or approaching everybody as a criminal mentality. I need to be defensive, I need to be careful because that person can be a criminal, can be carrying something, can be. Even when I looked at the title of, or the committee before, which is, there was the profiling. From the title of it, and this is another area, is from the title of it, it tells me that maybe the committee, with all respect who is involved, that the fruit of it can be limited. Because the police will be approached departments, not as a partner, as we are here to see why you are profiling. Why are we bringing them there to the table? We just sit a committee, discuss profiling issue things, and take them the proposal. I think for me, when I say community, it involves police department as well. It is just part of the community. So I think we need to, I would like to see them as a member of the community, and we start going that way instead of creating both department.
Very good.
How about education? To have a real targeted, meaningful education of, police versus, is that specific?
So to use the language we're trying, at the end of 5 years, we will have
Right.
a well-educated police and community. Which required a whole lot of work before that. But yeah.
That's right.
So what you said, Abdul, puts into question for me community/police relations. Because obviously just by that slash being there, we are posing the two like this, or maybe like this, but it's still. Okay, well, let's think about
You know,
that.
Kofi was actually adding and. I don't know if you noticed in his documents, it says Community and Police Relations Committee. I don't know if you noticed that subtle switch that he did.
That's better. All right, what do we have? Did that capture every one
I
of
think I
your
lost a
comments?
couple comments that I said in the beginning. Armin?
Yeah,
Was it you?
yeah, so shared understanding and agreement between everybody about the role of law enforcement, which, yeah, involves a lot of what we've been talking about. One of the agreements that I would like to work towards is that the law enforcement is there to prevent harm, both in all regards. That harm prevention is one of the things that we're all working towards.
But I just also be the other way around. Harm coming towards them. That they feel that, so.
Right, yeah, hopefully the goal is ultimately creating safety for everybody.
Exactly. Did we put the respect on that?
No.
The
Yeah,
videographer?
Did I?
Yeah, respect for the two parties.
From our videographer.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Will you add a mind and create safety? Sorry.
Not a problem.
Increase
How
it.
did I miss that? I heard
Increase.
it. I heard it, but I
You
didn't
were
have
too
it.
busy being the mechanic.
Oh, that's right, we were
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that.
Going to say something?
Yes, he is. Okay.
Everything that I say is in there, if you go back and see the mission and the visions of all the advisory committees, you get everything in there.
Good.
It is just, and it would be just so great if just to go back and look at it and capture. It's just everything that it had been the vision, it just it had not happened.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it's,
Yeah.
it's,
I think, if I can just comment, part of what I learned in that process as I was coming from an organization that had an antagonistic relationship with police was that through the months and months of meeting, I came to a greater understanding that police officers were as afraid as community of interacting, and yet many of us wanted the same things. Many of us wanted to be safe, many of us wanted to be respected, many of us were yearning for a positive interaction. And it doesn't surprise me that the visions continue to be very positive, and that somehow somewhere we can't achieve it, we get stuck, or there's an issue or a shooting in the community which throws everything awry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, from my experience, I had discussions with police officers back home and also here. Well, as Maria Lisa said, they are, I think, the most fearful people in the communities. Even a police officer here told me that because they live in a country where people are allowed to hold guns, based on their training, they are ready all the time to use their guns. That's their first reaction. So they are most fearful. So how to make them less fearful? And in 5 years, I would like my children, who will be maybe in high school, to have good relations with the police officers. Because what I've realized is that when the kids are small, they have good relations with the police officers. You see the police officers approach them, and I saw that on July 4th in the park there, in the Delta Park, police officers chatting with the kids. But at the same time, the older kids who are maybe 17, 18 could not approach the police officers. You see? So it's like the police officers, because they are not afraid of the kids, they can relate well with them. But once that same children grows up, it becomes a threat for the police officer. How can we change that?
It's very interesting because I have a friend who is also one high-ranking police officer back home. And one night I was talking to him live in the internet, video, seeing each other live. All of a sudden it was like around 2 in the morning, so I told me, let me make sure I close the door. I told him, man, you are years and years a high-ranking officer, you should be like strong. He told me, I will ask you a question, Abdul. Why do I have a weapon? I said to him, you're right. He told me, I have a weapon as an officer because I'm scared. That's why I carry with me a weapon, otherwise I won't need a weapon in my side. It's the same, there is people like that. But I think two things that I did before in partnership with officers is we had a welcoming team. Welcoming team which consists of officers and community members. We have them that they go to universities and colleges to welcome new students that are coming from other communities or international students, and talk to them about things and fun things and give them like little gifts that they have in the departments. And also from the new immigrant that's coming to the city, it doesn't matter either legal or illegal, or that's not their business, is to welcome them and explain to them what they do, and they're in the community, and they have like snacks and things like that, people get to interact with each other. And there is another idea that would be great to see, which Kofi hits on the training, is they are trained, okay, I didn't take a training with them, but from interacting with officers here, maybe they are trained about to not trust anybody and keep them as somebody suspect. Why, when they get trained in Salem, they have to have a training here as well in Portland? Why not, for the first 6 months, a training by community members about the community to new officers? And maybe ongoing training by the community members for the current officers about changing the community, mentality of the community, etc. One thing that I found successful when in Washington State, where I was before, is there was a person on call by sheriff department and by the police when there is a conflict or a misunderstanding or non-understanding of persons of colors or international students and families or immigrants. So I come there and explain to them and help them learn what that means for that person in that community. That is, I think, coming back also to education. That is what is really crucial, is what training they receive, how we can screen them, and how we can be part of the training to help them from the community to be aware of.
I mean, there is I have heard police officers say that they would welcome such an approach. this fear thing is really interesting. In, what do you call them, driveways, or when you drive with a cop?
Right along.
Right along, yeah.
Right along.
What I got from those is the officers that I rode with, the two scariest stops for them were traffic stops and family domestic violence. They hated that, because that's when they were more, they thought, I don't know if the research would support that, but that's what they feared most, traffic stops. So, you know.
So that's the interaction that we have the most data on in terms of stop and search.
Right. Paranoia,
Yeah,
it's real.
there's such a deep and layered issue with police that sometimes we fragment it and maybe take one piece and not looking at the whole. Saw a policy now that I might be wrong. There's a policy that police are empowered to stop a young person of color, irrespective of whether they are sure they have something or not. They are asked to stop. And I saw when they stopped one young man, a young 15, 14 looking African-American young man. And he said, you know, what have I done? And he just went ahead and searched the young man, and then he said, you know, just go ahead and go. And it was a ride along. Someone, a news person was in the car. And he said, yeah, you know, we didn't have to do that, but, you know, that's what we do. What does that leave in the head of a young person? He's going to a small store, an errand, and a police stops you and search you just because. And so when we're talking about how police are afraid, that young man is not going to have any respect for the police, because it just feels so, you feel so violated. And secondly, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, you're asking him to respect the police. So I still go back to education, awareness. How am I feeling? Maybe the listening session brought that up. I don't know, but
and there needed to be a deeper conversation.
Exactly.
And you're right, there is a policy emerging around random stops for gang to identify gang activity, and
yes.
we need somehow to get a pulse on where that is, because it could really impact an increase in profiling among youth. But I don't know that it's an adopted policy.
Okay.
All right, friends, I need your permission. We're 7 minutes over our agenda item. We need your permission to either continue this process or to suggest some other dynamic by which we can still honor our word. I was going to suggest that we have some wonderful, what do you call them? Things up there.
Right.
I was going to ask staff and one of us to take this into account, maybe ask you, your office, to give us some other mission statements from other similar things, and then ask that person to sort of put this information into one, not necessarily cogent, but at least one attractive statement that might allow us the focus, yet the breadth to do what we're all asking this group.
So just a clarification, it looks as though these statements are vision statements. And that is good. That means we know where we're headed in 5 years. And we will need some more specifics around the mission statement. I did some looking for mission statements for community police relations work in various human relations commissions. I couldn't find any. I maybe found one that was sorely inadequate. It was very police focused. So it may require some more work, some more research, and looking at some mission statements of prior entities to see whether they encompass what this vision would like to achieve.
A mission statement can be many things.
Would you like it to be broad?
Well, I don't know. You know, the Columbia School of Social Planning recommends that a mission statement always have 3 components. who we are, our relationship to the world, and what was it?
It is who we are, values and vision.
Yes, that's what the mission
Two
statement
components.
is. Right.
But the first one, who we are, that's actually Maria, so I was going still to ask you this question is, who are we and what do we need to accomplish? Is there anything from the mayor's office or Salzman? Fred, why are we here? We don't want to form the same mistake.
No.
From those points of, like you make it here, the purpose. From it, I think we can develop a really good mission. So we can create a two-line mission that all of us we need to remember by heart.
Exactly.
And then from there is that 5-year vision or our vision where we need to go as roadmap, correct? And backward, like you were talking about, for this year is what we need to accomplish.
Yeah, basically, these are goals.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are.
These are goals. We still haven't captured the concept of a mission statement.
Right.
But that's okay, because then, under each goal, there are very specific objectives, which are the doable things.
Yeah, and
I was going to say, I would like to have the conversation, though, that does include the values that we're operating from, because I think that's going to make a big difference in terms of how we approach.
So shall we continue for the next several
let's
minutes?
continue, because I don't have enough to work with to craft something.
Well, we
that
want you
will
to
do-
craft that with one of
Yeah.
us,
Yeah, good.
so that you don't have
But
to do
still,
that work.
you could still brainstorm some more. That would be very helpful. And just to say, okay, we are a standing committee of the Human Rights Commission, comprised of volunteers, officers, community members at large. So that's who we are, no? Does that answer that question?
So we're
No,
working
not
for
yet.
we're working for the community, which includes, was it you or Danita, I forgot who incorporated the police as part of the community, not separated them. So we're working on behalf and for the community, which is inclusive. Okay.
And as a bureau, the police bureau, what are their values? I don't know. So that we share common values.
Yeah, I can get that for you. They do have a value statement. Wonderful poster, I've seen it. It's actually really inspiring. And we should have an assistant chief here the next time so that we can get those answers
That
directly.
would be wonderful.
Yeah, we can also, like, if we came to it, we can have values from Human Relations Office, values from Human Rights Office, values also from the City Hall, and combined with values from Police Department and creating our own.
I heard a lot of that is being shared around the
Yes.
table though already.
Yeah, it has.
You know. And part of my response to, yes, let's learn what we can from the past work of our brothers and sisters. When it comes down to, we need to own this.
You do, because Amanda Fritz does not have an agenda for this standing committee. It is a standing committee of the Human Rights Commission. Certainly there are organizations that were invested in the racial profiling work that have a deep interest in addressing that issue. The mayor has participated in racial profiling committee from way past and over-representation committees, frustrated with the lack of movement on the issue. So it is up to us to craft something that we can achieve, which is quite a lot of leeway. But then we need the parameters.
I have a clarification. So this committee that Human Rights Commission is planning to have, this committee will be under the Human Rights Commission. And so I know that there's other people and groups that they're working with the same thing, or they have done. Are you going to involve so everybody can work together? Because it seems to me that it doesn't make sense of having different groups with the same ideas, and we want the best for the community and for the safety, but
That's a very good question.
We just had answered that before you came.
okay, so I
And
apologize for
it is part of our
repeating,
agenda. No, that's okay. It's part of our agenda. Because we always knew that this was just going to be a core group from the commission itself, but that the majority of people would be from the city community.
From communities.
So yeah, definitely. It's not, we're not going to do it. Come on, give me a break.
No, I just want clarification because,
No,
I mean,
absolutely.
obviously, you know, who I see and I know that how I ended over here at this meeting is because I got an email saying that, you know, people from the community should be in this meeting. And so I wasn't too clear what was going on, and I had the time. I said, let me go because I think it's very
You're
important.
here at the birthing
as
of
a-
this reality.
This
This is
the
a birth pain.
So, okay, so maybe that's why it was the meeting that it was, you know, that it was a good idea for
Sure.
people from the community to
Absolutely.
participate with this.
And
So-
all these folks are community members.
Well,
Let's clarify.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, but they're representing somebody, right? Or
The
just
commission.
the community?
I'm
The
not,
commission.
I'm
No,
not,
yeah, when you look at the commission, it is not like literally, we are from the community. And
Well,
the
yeah, but
commission
you're
is
from
not
the commission,
community.
from the Human Rights
Right,
Commission.
yes.
So it's not like, I'm not from the commission, I'm a community member, not a commissioner.
But
So
you
there's a
may well
difference.
become a member of
No,
this
no.
committee.
Yeah, I just want to
Or,
clarify, so
you know.
there's a difference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not a committee member, I'm just here to listen, almost like a community member, but as a representative, so I can.
And take back
Yeah.
a real wonderful
Yeah, I
report.
see your notes. Good notes. Good ideas.
All right,
Thank you for clarifying.
thank you for raising that issue. That's very critical for us to keep in mind. The values, respect, I heard that, and I assume that's mutual respect,
Mm-hmm.
integrity.
What does integrity mean?
Pardon?
What's your definition of integrity?
Integrity is that which resides in each one of us and no one messes with. The ability to act.
Security.
Safety, you mean?
Security.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry,
he has
I
a- he has
totally
another
lost
value.
this. Can we?
Just, it's all right, it doesn't matter, just, we can elaborate as we have to.
Security, what do you mean by security?
Security.
Values, we're talking about values.
Values, yeah.
I just don't understand the
Okay.
outline.
Though we might suggest that some of them may not be values, but they're incorporated in a value.
So this is moving on from the discussion earlier to more of a value statement
Right.
for Hava.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'm curious to hear more.
About security.
Yeah,
As a value, and as a human being, I value security. I want to feel secure, and it's an important value for me in my life. For my life, if I don't feel secure, I don't, whether physically, emotionally, I mean, in all aspects, economically, financially, I want to feel secure.
I'm sorry, can I add? Is this values for how the community is going to interact? Or the committee is going to interact together, or is it just more of a general value statement for the committee? And I guess is that kind of?
Well, Arwen, you're the one who sort of, what was your thinking on, I have some thoughts, but what was your thinking on the issue?
I think that often in discussions around violence, we can assume that we're operating from the same values, but I think it's helpful to clarify what our values are. And I think like one of the things that comes up often is that police officers say that they want to maintain order when they're choosing to make certain decisions. And I would like to clarify like what I have a need for order too, so, you know, to know that I'm going to be able to move around in the world and not have people knocking me over, things like that. But I might disagree with the strategies that police officers use sometimes to maintain order. So I think that the values discussion is just helpful to kind of delve deeper into what it is that we're trying to do in the world.
I always like the discussion of peace and justice. Is there peace without justice? So you can have order, you may not have justice. So very good.
Oh, was that?
Well, peace and justice, but I was thinking more of order and in a just way.
What does
I mean, you
order
can hit someone in the head and it's going to be order, or you can find a better way of.
Can I add one?
Yes, dignity.
interesting. I'm just so curious to see what had been proposed in the prior committee because I think we digressed from the values frequently. In fact, that was one of your comments when you first came. Is there any kind of agreement on how people are interacting? With one another?
You mean around the table?
Yes, yeah.
So that would be another
I'd like to add a comment about the security as value because I believe it will be a common ground between the community and police relations. Because the police claim that they are there to provide security for the community. And the community needs security. And how do you provide that security to the community? Does the community feel secure from your service? So those are questions. And something I said, when I see the rose on the police car, rose means something special to me. It's an outreach for love, for protection, for caring for someone. But does the community see that rose on the police car like that? I'm not sure because most of them don't see the rose.
You know, I read some documents years back when I lived in Oakland. Oakland had a horrible police department at that time. And one of the documents that was shared in that process suggested that a community eventually develops a policing system which they want, which they legitimize. And so that Oakland, throughout its history, really created the police department that they wanted, which was racist, violent, disparity, because the community, those who were able to vote and whatever, throughout the years, this is what they determined was what they wanted as a police enforcement model. And I'm not so sure that's still not valid, that policing now is a product of a history of protection for people who were able to claim that protection. And that's why it had so many gaps, because they were having it.
And it could be a value statement that as we're working out this mission and the work, that if we are to impact community policing and the growth of that practice in Portland, that we are creating a policing system we want to see, which is not what it is now, but it's the opportunity that's there. I think that's a really good value statement to put out there. I think part of the challenge, no, I'll stop there. Go ahead. Keep going.
No, you were going to share something. Did you ever get to it?
I'm trying to find it, so I'll find it.
I'd be interested, Donita, you mentioned dignity, and I don't know if that got captured, or I'd be curious about hearing what inspired that.
Well, because of the inherent right for all of us to express our diversities, our different ways of thinking, but be able to be honored in that way too, to be able to be heard and have the opportunity to present different views, different cultures, different experiences, and have it met with an open heart and ear as well.
Yeah, I got to share.
I found it.
That's where it touches on integrity, the integrity of a person or a community is its own integrity. It determines its own sense of reality, and the respect is there for it.
I think it empowers individuals when they feel heard.
That's wonderful.
There were a number of agreements, and some of them are sort of defensive agreements. It's interesting. So the agreements where there's a need to improve relationships and create trust between police officers and community members. We want to be a part of making that happen. On a scale of 0 to 10, we're currently at 3 or 4. Okay, so we want to start and end on time. We'll have time for visitors to speak. So it was all structural agreements. Each member shall stay informed of the subcommittee's work and plans. So we have a responsibility to maintain ourselves informed. one of the agreements that was made was the committee membership will remain as is. Nothing could change about it. That was shifted toward the end. And then respect different viewpoints, listen carefully, keep it as a non-personal issue. Those are some of the agreements made.
Well, they sound nice.
Understand and recognize cultural differences, use I statements and not you statements. Everyone has an opportunity to fully participate. Try to practice both and thinking. That really was hard. So your reality is equally as valid as mine, which is what you were saying. And then there were some agreements around decision making, and who could vote and membership.
So I think from that, I think there's a confusion with our respect for past what been done. Confusion between ground rules of a meeting, between interacting with each other as a partners, and there is a power issue there, which is committee stands as it is and should be always like that. So there's a position issue in there. For us in the value, how I see it, the values that you're talking about is the values of this group.
Right.
What are values that should be assigned in the community? And looking there, respect, integrity, peace, dignity, those make sense. And we can go in, when we read them, we can explain in the bottom of the page what each one of them we are looking for, what we're translating into, what purpose of it, so nobody, not like missing translation. But when it comes to a community develops a policing system which it wants and things like that, it is more, does not fit more in values. Do we see the roles on the police car? But actually it is very interesting when you make that comment, because who you involved in the community to make what the police should be results in what results you want. It is like in hiring. If we put on the table of hiring, we want to hire who looks like us.
Exactly.
That's what we will get. So in here in Portland is community developed policing is what that community consists of. So if it consists of everybody that's coming from, for example, somewhere where there is no other group of people except them, they can develop some values and things like that that reflect that group. So I think that's when it's great to write everything, but I think when we go back on screen,
it this isn't a value, but it's a concept that is, I don't want to get lost because it's so fundamental.
When you suggested we talk about, I thought you were talking about the values of the committee, not necessarily how we treat each other, but how we're doing it, and why are we interacting with the community? That's what I thought.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, and but I think
Yeah,
there's
rather than
a
that.
discussion about agreements, about how we operate together, how we communicate with each other. I mean, those are, like, there are values kind of in those agreements, and maybe that's another thing that we need to do is come to agreement about how we spend our time together and share space.
There's been a lot of question about transparency, and that is a value around communication.
And the trust. I mean, if you can talk about any value you
Trust.
want,
Absolutely.
but the main thing, if there's no trust among each other or anybody, there's nothing.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
Right. That's a huge one. Yeah.
I think that's just, you have to have trust to be able to do anything.
Which implies also not assuming, trust is based on the listening, on the possibility of actually creating that space for that person to speak without judging them.
Well, it's everything.
Yeah.
Everything. If you don't have trust, you don't have. If you don't have trust, you don't have nothing.
And trust comes from relationships.
Yes.
Relationships and learning from each other, and then you go back to all that of respect, of integrity,
You do.
of just go back.
Which goes back to
Go back
engagement.
to engagement.
Engagement.
Yeah. And
I
then,
mean, we'll never know each other. We don't.
exactly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm learning to trust you.
Keep running.
I keep learning. Likewise. Likewise.
All right.
It's a good
Friends,
phrase.
we're not going to finish by 12 o'clock.
No,
So-
that was an ambitious.
That's all right. That's all right. I think as we are initiating this, we can't wait a long time. Are we willing to meet next week to continue to finish this up?
I have a request.
Okay.
Changing time, because a lot of us volunteer here or coming here is like there's a lot of things going. I really value this to my heart, so I try to make it as possible, as much possible I be here. But if we can change the time to later, that would be a
You
lot.
suggest it, I think some of us have a little flexibility, and let's negotiate it. What do you suggest, what time?
I think after 4 p.m. would be a lot better for me. Honestly.
Would I have a regular, I've been taking dance lessons at 6 on Thursdays.
Or
So
change the day.
we could, I mean,
Yeah, but that has to be Thursday.
If at 6 is your
yeah,
lesson.
I mean, it won't go forever, but.
Next week, we have the advisory committee meeting on Wednesday. So Thursday is open in the evening, or if we commit like an hour and a half, would that help at least move some of it forward?
I could leave
So we
it
can
early
compile
too.
this and,
So let's try 4 to 5:30 next week. Thursday, is that okay? Super, yeah, because, whoa.
And also, if I may recommend something.
Check.
Because as you mentioned with the time, if we start something and what we're thinking of as a group, that we take it back as a team, not only on you, but we volunteer and help with it and get it done and send it via email as suggestions. That way we can accomplish a lot. And next meeting can be just a review.
Absolutely.
And
Well, I wanted to remind us what I said earlier. I'd like someone of you to work with Maria Lisa between now and then to do that. Because I think it works better with 2 people working on it rather than just one. So I guess I'm asking for a volunteer. And since I've become the super delegate, I can't volunteer.
we're looking at you three.
I know, I'm holding back a little bit because I'm really interested in the ad hoc committee that we're talking about and wanting to offer to help convene.
Yeah, we're going to be involved in that, so.
Put energy
That's you
in.
two.
I leave 2.
I'd be happy.
He's wonderful.
Thank you.
And coalescing ideas, yeah.
Do some research. Yeah, I'd be happy.
Okay, so the 2 of you will prepare the way for us next week.
Now, a week is really fast turnaround for me.
Oh, you want 2 weeks?
It would be easier.
Okay, 2 weeks. Right.
So what number day is that?
Oh, I am so busy, you know.
The 19th.
So busy.
But there's a budget forum,
That's true,
on
the
that
19th.
evening, too.
Oh, and
Where are
then
we?
we'll
09?
be there. So
Yeah.
what's happening on the 18th?
Ooh, nothing.
Yeah? Could we?
Is that a Wednesday?
It's a Wednesday, yeah. As we're
That works
sort
for
of
me.
4 to
laying
6?
the foundation, yeah. 4 to 6?
4 to 6? With dinner?
2:18, yeah. And.
You know, my church
earliest-
troops are so powerful and effective organizations because they feed their troops. No, I'm just joking about dinner.
No, we can provide something.
Okay, this is the community committee.
And would you like an officer there from the start, or do you want to
Yes.
make,
Yeah.
I think it'd be helpful,
Transparency starts
yeah.
at the birthing pangs.
Yeah, we'll start with that. What the commitments? So,
Now,
There is also a big meeting that Wednesday night for the, I know for the chiefs, between 6 and, starting at 6 at the St. John's Community Center about the precinct closures. So for the high level folks, they will
they will
have to go to that, I'm pretty sure.
I'll see if at least one assistant chief can be here. We're supposed to have Assistant Chief Martinick as a liaison, which is wonderful because he's also the chair of the professionalism standards work group in the police bureau. But if he cannot attend, then, I mean, we are still in brainstorming phase, and what we need to just do is bring it as a proposal to folks and see what happens.
Right.
The other piece we were hoping to do today was,
Yeah.
we're not, are we done?
No, we're not, but, you know, we're clear on what needs to be done to continue this process. So let's move on to the next, even though it feels a little, the composition?
Yeah, so again, that was a difficult point for the racial profiling committee. It is up to you all to determine who you believe could be most use to you in this committee. My suggestion would be that you not create a very large committee, but that it have reach so that we can do some work in communities. and that you be very careful about who you appoint. I have some draft statements about expectations of committee members. You can add to those or delete. They may help in determining selection. Because this is a public meeting and a public entity, you may want to do a process of recruitment that's open. This was not an open recruitment. This was a recruitment done by Oregon Action and then proposed to the mayor, who then appointed those members. So there was no open recruitment here. Again, some ideas for something different. And you may know some folks that are talented, that bring some skill in moving this forward, that you can invite to apply if you choose to.
But you're feeling, I sort of like the open recruitment process.
Yeah, just the one thing is would be like who's really in charge of screening who.
Well,
We would be.
yeah.
We
The Human Rights Commission, because you would need to appoint the members.
We would
of the
recommend them to the Human Rights
Right.
Commission.
Yeah,
Okay.
the larger body would appoint. And my suggestion is that you appoint people for 2 years so they know the start and end date of their commitment and they could achieve something and not open-ended. Even though it's a standing committee, the appointment could come with clear parameters.
That means we would start with a fresh group every 2 years. The
Or you
commission
could
would.
do a staggered membership. That would make sense. You may want to retain some of that investment and expertise, or people may get tired.
I'm aware of how much power that gives us in a certain regard. Think through the comfort level that I have with that and wanting to honor the work that's been happening in the community. And I know this isn't the only place that we're going to create a wonderful law enforcement entity. And yeah, I'm just conscious of that. I want to acknowledge it, that,
Yeah, and to counter that, and not to discount it, but to counter it, it is a committee of the Human Rights Commission, and the commissioners are accountable for their work. And so you want to think carefully about who you invite to join you in that work, and it could be a very diverse group of folks with a number of talents, but you own the work ultimately. You report on that work to the council. So it is your work. It's like a board.
I think we need to start with composition. Just so we're clear how many will be around the table and, so people think, oh, I have a shot at being one of 12 people around the table, whatever.
Is Martha going to say something for you?
Yeah, I want to it's just thoughts that they're coming, and I hear you, Marilisa. I think you're right. I think that you have to be very selective who you choose in the community, who have the skills. I mean, this is like a major responsibility as community members. I can say that because at once I was the chairperson for the advisory committee for the Latinos. But at the same time, I would like for you to, when you're selected, to be careful how you select and not being very selective because you know someone, or because you're not choosing someone because you don't like that person's personality, or because you think the person is challenging. And so that it makes me a little bit like, and then I know this is a draft, and I was looking at that application, and we have to be careful too, because we're asking the community to participate. It's a volunteer, just like what you guys, and it would be nice of not being too
bureaucratic.
Yeah, it just makes me feel like, like if I was interested, it's like that, it's like you're asking like, and I'm not saying that it's wrong or it's right. I'm not saying that, but I think it's very important for you guys, whoever is charging and who's going to make the last decision.
also, and be sensitive to that, so.
That's very helpful. You're asking us to make sure that this process is accessible.
Yeah.
Because this can be a little weighty
And,
here.
and someone, if, to look at it and, they wanted it, it's like, I have to write all this and all, I mean, I don't know.
This is
I
what
hear
was
you.
have
No, no.
comes with a standard city.
Yeah, it is a
committee.
standard commission language that we do.
Do we have to use it?
It's up to you. I mean,
Can we
it is a
modify
city
it?
commission. You can modify it most definitely.
This
Make
is
it
for the
friendly.
community, I think
Yeah.
this is for that, you should be able to do however
Make
you
it
want to.
friendlier? Yeah, I can do that.
But you are public. It's not that open. And had I thought a little bit ahead, I would have had the attorney here. You are right in saying, okay, folks who are on the commission, they are commissioners and they are public agents.
We're subject to certain.
Yeah,
Definitely.
so that piece we have to, honor. And yes, it could be onerous. We could simplify it. We also may get hundreds of applications. And if we ask for more information, it's easier to get to know the person a little better. You might want interviews with those folks. It's up to you how you set the process. Interviews may be really helpful because then you could determine, ooh, this person has like a huge grudge. Do we want to bring them? Or they're so pro-cod. Do we really want them here? Are they going to jade the effort one way or another?
The one thing that CRC, that the independent police, what was that? Review.
Independent.
Their process of choosing folks was really interesting. It was taken out of the hands of the group, and they set up an independent group of people involving a number of folks from all over leadership. Like there was a supervisor on, there was a judge, there was police, there was, different. And so the nominations came to them, and they're the ones who determined who would be recommended to the commission, something like that. So I don't know if something like that sounds doable.
That's, it's similar to what occurred with the Human Rights Commission appointments. We asked for recommendations from council members who did recommend, and then there were a number of folks who applied on their own, and they were vetted by many of the commissioner staff. So again, but it's less transparent that way. I don't know. The way because there's a lot of information being shared back and forth about, well, we really want that person that. It's hard. It's not going to be easy to appoint. I just have to say.
I think at the end we are going to take the responsibility of this.
One way or the other.
I think we need to have, I like the process and the suggestion is to have an application, to have an interview process, to make sure that we are doing the hard work and give it a lot of attention at the beginning. So when we are going through the work, we are not regretting from the beginning we didn't do a good job of pushing it. Here is application is an application. It needs to be formal with the city. But one thing I will bring to our attention, we can change, but it's not just go ahead and easy to change because there's a lot of legal things, how to ask questions, things like that. We can modify. I would suggest modification. Here is one of them, for example, I would like to modify. It's number 4. What contact, possible or negative, have you had with the police?
Yeah, this is a
That
question
can-
from CRC.
Oh, really?
Directly, yeah.
That's not
what
a
they
good one
ask.
for me. Is like, then somebody will be like, oh, how far is this going? Why do you need? So they think. But I agree. Application process, application
You could ask them
review,
in an
interview.
We can work out the other stuff.
Yeah.
Maria, could you check with the lawyer and see how we can sort of do some modifications just to
And
make it?
also, I'll check with her about, because this is a subcommittee of a commission, how we go about appointments of, your bylaws state that the Human Rights Commission appoints
Right.
both the committee and so you would be recommending those
To
to
the
the Human
commission,
Rights
right.
Commission. So it's being vetted by 15 community folks who may or may not know folks.
Okay.
I think there's layers of, I don't think, favoritism would be really hard to play off a commission of 15 members. Don't you think?
Yeah,
Who
they are
knows?
very
No, it's not harmful.
You know,
Some
not
are better than
assumptions.
others.
Better that, because I'm not saying that, but, yeah.
It's always
It's-
there,
yeah.
you know, and you're right, how do we assure that people really have an opportunity?
Right, right.
So we'll just have to really be conscious of that and develop our own
Mhm.
process. Well, we seem to be doing two things, committee composition and the criteria. How many do we want sitting around the stage, besides the four of us?
One thing I would like to pay attention to is a youth opportunity, leadership development, succession planning, an educational component for our youth in here.
That's
Mhm.
great.
Terrific.
That was one element that was missing, that we never had a
So
youth.
we recommend 20% of the group be youth?
Definitely more.
I'm serious, so
Yeah.
why not?
I think for an opportunity to different age range, because I could see some of our really younger youth, maybe 12, 14, really being engaged in, potential career paths as well too, but with that succession planning to help bring up our youth as well, I think we could offer opportunity in all the work that we do as a commission or
So what I'm hearing probably would be more, in my opinion, effective for youth is, because they're youth, like 12, 14, you don't want to do some decision making. Yeah, because expectations and the age. I think I would like to have them involved in certain ways in the committee, either coming as a standing, visiting, in interaction, even giving them some work to do, not homework, but some work to do for the committee. That's involvement, or asking them for input about certain things. That would be great. But for the members of this committee,
My church dictates that a quarter of all of our committees be people under 25.
The city has a commission on children and youth, and I committed actually to the coordinator of that commission, and it's a county city commission, that we, after we get some turnover on the Human Rights Commission, and we assign at least 2 seats to youth. In essence, honoring that we need to bring them to the table as decision makers. It may be a very weighty commitment, and so it will have to be youth who are able to make that commitment because it's a time factor. But I think youth are fully capable.
What age are you talking?
It probably a little bit older
Yeah.
than 12. 12.
eventually to be thinking in those directions, though, I would like to see our younger ages becoming more involved in,
And they are receiving a large brunt of policing and the profiling that goes on. So it's important to have their voice at the table. They need to be engaged in those dialogues as well. It could be a catalyst for some big change.
I think I agree. I think we absolutely have to have youth, and I really like the word succession. I was a biology major in college, and so I've always heard that in terms of environment change, but I really appreciate you using that word, Donita, in terms of just how things evolve and recognizing that there's that connection generationally as well. I don't know if that's what you implied, but I just, my mind starts to go all those directions.
That's true.
But, I coming from the perspective of working with survivors, I'm always like, should we, we're talking about bringing in police that are often identified in the role of folk that are perpetrating harm, not always. And many of us represent communities that are disproportionately targeted as well for violence. And so I think that it's absolutely critical to have youth there, have youth among us, because they, in a stereotype sense, are a group of people that are disproportionately targeted for violence as well. And I'll just throw this out there. I'm just thinking about it. I don't know how married I am, but whether or not we want to have people who are identified as direct survivors of police violence participate as well. I think many of us can resonate with the experiences of people, but I think it's different to have somebody there who had a loved one that was killed Kofi, it's really powerful to have you identify that way for me. So I just want to throw that out there.
All right. We're getting closer, but we need to get even closer. How many people are on our table? We can always change it, right? But at least,
We're bartering.
well, I don't hear any figures yet.
So one of the programs that our office is really invested in taking forward is the peace building dialogues or the living room conversations that we started in a different organization, started with the Racial Profiling Committee. And our goal is to be able to train folks to co-facilitate. And we have an agreement with the Police Bureau to partner with us on this. They're very excited. It would be good to get enough diversity and enough numbers to actually be able to do some work. Not just sit at the table, but do some work in building relationships. And I don't know that you want to form a whole entire other commission, but maybe a group of 9, or 11 would be a workable group. 7 seems small for the range of diversity that we need around the table.
So you're saying 4 plus
Yeah.
7 or 11?
No, I'm saying 9 or 11 total.
Including
Yeah,
the 4.
because otherwise you have a very large group again coming together on this issue. And yeah, I would say that those folks need to have reach and depth in their community so that, in fact, that's one of the criteria, that they can be influence leaders, that they can be, they can help shift.
All right.
So I think 4, and what do you think would be more appropriate to go with how many officers we should have as well? And that will get us closer to,
We should have more than one.
of course. So what do you think? I don't know if this question will be the police department or us we can approach.
We're not talking liaison, we're talking full members of the.
Members here.
Yeah.
Then we will know how many more we need. So when I agree, it's, I think 11, 9, 11 is a really good number. Yeah, that's going to be a little bit.
I would suggest 2 police officers and 5 community members, plus the 4 commissioners.
So that would be 9 community people and 2 officers.
Yeah.
Would you want the officers picked by the police bureau, or would you actually want them to apply as well?
Apply.
I have a mixed
Good
feelings
question.
about that.
Very good
I
question.
would recommend that they be appointed by the police bureau as influence leaders in the police bureau. If we ask folks to apply, we may not get any to apply. There's just, not that there's ill will, it's just that they're very busy folks. They don't get the off time paid for. It would be ideal to have an assistant chief, and I think we have that commitment, and possibly either an officer or 2 or a commander. That structure, the combination of folks that was at the Racial Profiling Committee in terms of the officers, I think the most problematic position was the union position. It's very problematic. I wouldn't necessarily go in that direction for this committee.
Well, that person has to represent.
Right, they have to
And
represent
as
other
opposed-
people.
As opposed to themselves.
Right. So representing themselves with the full will, working on the mission of the committee, but influence leaders. Because if it's an officer, a line officer, who's supposed to carry forward this work, they won't have neither the authority or the convincing power within a structure like the police bureau. Is my sense.
Yeah, I believe the police is a special institution where the hierarchy is
It's very hierarchical.
very respected. I don't think police officers can apply on their own.
So that's an interesting question.
It just comes to my mind because I can see in the eyes of that commander who was doing presentation is that, and I don't know, that the first time I see him or listen to him, even asking him some of our hard questions from our side, you can see in his eyes there is some passion in there. Can we recommend maybe, so he's also feeling like a word that, I don't know.
Yeah, you could.
Because he's in a level of commander
And he's influencing a number of
and
precincts.
already working with the community as well, so.
He actually requested a meeting with our office for Monday to follow up on the living room conversation strategy. So it's good timing, it's just that we don't have the infrastructure with this committee to have him here now. But I think if he had the time.
The 2 officers and 11 members, is that what I hear?
And they may suggest we need more officers. They may.
Well, 3 officers.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a 2.
That was 12-member committee.
Yeah, 12-member, which if you want the committee to be voting, oh, wait. What does it say about voting? Is it community members? Community members don't vote on standing committees, right?
Recommendation to the vice
Recommendation
commission.
to the, okay. Is that, I need to look at the bylaws on that issue. That might or might not impact them.
My understanding of committees which are purposefully a wider pool than just the commission is that committee, everyone in that committee has votes around the issues that are around that table.
I don't remember by heart. Standing committees and voting.
Where is that in
The
the
bylaws.
bylaws?
I think it's mentioned.
Well, we'll have to make an amendment to the bylaws then.
I don't know what the bylaws say.
We have 5 minutes, friends, and 17 more items on the agenda. Public comment? The public has been commenting, but you have a special agenda item here. Obviously, our task for today is incomplete. Yeah, this agenda was a little bit.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to know if you guys, because this is like the birth, and you guys meeting in 2 weeks, and would you guys feel comfortable if I can come again or not? Because I don't know how
This
you
is an
guys.
open,
This is an open meeting.
Okay,
transparent.
well, I would just want a
Whoever-
clarification because I just walked in and a little bit
Thank you for
lost,
asking,
but I
but
know.
that door is open.
Okay, so just,
Absolutely.
Trying to-
All meetings in the commission are
wow.
open.
The only time we're going to be in closed session is when we determine how much we're going to get paid. Would you like to make a comment? It's been wonderful having you here.
Thank you for letting me come and comment.
Anytime. You're welcome.
Yeah, we
Thank
really
you for your.
appreciate Commissioner Saltzman's presence through you here because it's an integral partnership.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Videographer?
No comment. I'm just glad to be here and glad it's open to the public so that it's an open dialogue going back and forth.
Super.
Thanks.
Do you want help with editing that?
I'll be editing this.
Well, anybody have any words for the good of the whole table?
Maybe we can propose some agenda items for
Yep.
the coming.
Let's do that. Oh, excuse me. Mi corazón, and she never uses this phone. You're interrupting an incredibly important meeting. And now, I'm at the Human Rights Commission right now, finishing up a very important committee that you're interrupting. Well, I am going right there when I leave here.
Corazón.
That was a couple, right. I gotta go.
Let's just do the whole thing.
Apologies. I apologize to my wife. She has no manners. Yes, agenda items. And obviously,
Maybe we need to fine tune this a little more.
that will be a focus, a major
I
focus.
thought you were asking me to stay.
No, that will be a major focus. I wouldn't order you to do that.
I'm following.
No, remember, I was pointing to the work we've done already, Maria Luisa, my God.
Okay, I'll sit down.
There's some items here will be repeated.
You were
I
on
think in
your
the next
advisory.
one, like
I'm
committee composition,
Criteria.
criteria exactly.
The application.
Just like
Yeah.
once a month kind of
Once a
thing.
month ways to make this.
And the mission statement, that's more than enough. And we'll have an open agenda in there for other businesses. We happen to, and you happen to have something.
So, a sincere question to you who have done a lot of work on this issue. In terms of the focus and boundaries of the work, we know we are a recommending entity. We're going to make recommendations to the Bureau. We're probably going to engage with them very deeply in our county police, building those closer relations. How do we start the work? I mean, I struggled enormously with the racial profiling committee and landing it somewhere that was tangible. It was very difficult to land in a tangible place, and maybe my best suggestion would be that we continue those dialogues and explore others, and then see where the community policing work might take us. Because if we get into policy right away, we could get very overwhelmed with data. And I don't know. I mean, I would like to feel successful as we move forward rather than buried.
Yeah, data is important only as a background,
Yeah.
but I don't think we need to get flooded with data.
Okay.
I think we need to approach it from a policy perspective, our recommendations, whether they be for training or any other things. I know the work that was done with profiling, with some of their recommendations, and I know that the chief responded to some of them. And
Yes, and there's a police plan that will be presented soon, and she's asking, she probably will ask this committee to host some sessions to present that plan.
we can do that. One of the things that I discovered is you can't approach the police with a huge flamethrower and burn everything down. You need to focus on something or some things that are mutually, not necessarily agreeable, but mutually interesting.
I'm a fan too. I mean, I know it's challenging working in government entities in terms of quantifying how to change the human heart. But, you know, when Kofi talked about looking at the police car and seeing the rows, you know, do people see the rows? Like, you know, how do we, it's beautiful, but how do we quantify that? I think it's possible, but, you know, I work also on the gentrification, the restorative listening project, and, you know, for us, it's trying to quantify, you know, when a white person is able to make eye contact with a person of color, that is, and smile at a person that they don't know, that's a change that's happened. It's hard because it's, you know, as far as the city is concerned, or the way that a lot of our culture operates, it's not quantifiable. But I believe that that's the kind of change that actually needs to happen in order for this violence to stop.
One of the folks who was really helpful in the racial profiling committee is a professor from PSU who promised to lend his resources to measure the change in those living room conversations, or in those dialogues with the mosque. In essence, to measure the social capital gained, or the change in perception, the change in heart. When you walked in, and it can happen with your draft observing, when you walked in, what were you thinking? And then when you left, what happened for you? And capturing that will be critical, because there's no other way of measuring this change. We'll see the change 5-10 years down the road, right? But we have to capture that experience.
Another thing, and I don't know if it's possible or what you think about it, is because we are asking, we have, for the police department, there is this human rights commission now, that's clear. And there is, for them also, there is like, what's going on, especially for the leaders, more than line staff are wondering what's going on in here. I think also we'll invite you, Rosie, and coming here and commanders. What about, like, at least 4 of us who exist right now, a visit to get a regular meeting of commanders or leadership, and just telling them here who we are, we're looking for a great partnership for the future, how to work together, just to have faces and people get to know and talk to their, and we'll welcome them that we can come to any meeting of their precincts and introduce ourselves and let them know who we are. Because bottom line, it is community and police, not because how we start and how we act will give a message.
It's community.
I would also,
So-
you talked about ride-alongs earlier. I would really recommend, I learned a lot by going on some police ride-alongs and things I had just made assumptions about and had no idea about how the officers on the streets how they're kind of sent out and their procedure, and just all the little things that they have to deal with. I thought it was really valuable. If you haven't done one, I would really recommend it.
Good.
I think it's, you learn about their forms, you see their computers, just how they kind of have to drop, just all sorts of little details of their calls and domestic violence calls and some of the more things that they're in.
Occasionally you have to duck your head.
And going beyond that, they have I don't know if they still have the training, but the training that they have for community members, I highly recommend it
That is a
for
great
you guys
experience.
to really, it's for a few weeks, but you really learn.
What's it called?
Yeah, I can't even,
It's
was
like
trying to
basic-
think about it, but I can't remember. You know which one that I'm talking about?
It may help, I think, all the members when you're starting to figure out what policies
Definitely.
you may want to address or what things really are. I'm
Great
sure you
idea.
hear of your own issues,
idea.
but
It will make a big difference if you go through the training first, and then you go from there. So you have a better perspective, better ideas than just jump into something that you don't know. No, you leave, really, I highly recommend it.
yeah, it would help, I think it would help with the mutual trust. I think there's other
Yeah.
things that the police need to do with the committee and the community as well, obviously, but I think, because their procedure manual is this thick and very small, and
Well, that would really help, because right now it didn't have it. You're the police and here's us. So would you also share the agenda and ask whoever you're gonna be in contact with if they have anything they would like to add to the agenda? And also, maybe it would be good to give them time to share their perception of this.
You mean the folks who participated?
No, I'm talking about the police.
No, that's what I'm saying, the police who
Or
participated?
whoever.
No.
Okay,
Perceptions about,
just general, okay.
Yeah, it's good. I don't know that's what you meant, but it's good to know who is participating from the police, what they're feeling, that they felt about when you were before in this committee.
They'll share.
What I mean by that is, literally, it is like when you're talking about going and training with them. It is for me is like it is like a marriage here.